The Galactic Academy floated in silent space, far from any single planet. It was built where no species had full control, so every race would feel equal. Young warriors, thinkers, and future leaders trained there together. Some had scales, some had wings, some had 4 arms or glowing eyes. All of them believed their species was strong. But on that day, the whispers were about only one thing. A human had arrived. The transport ship from Earth docked slowly. The doors opened with a soft hiss. A single girl stepped out. She looked small. No heavy armor. No bodyguards. No sign of advanced weapons. Just a simple academy uniform and calm eyes. Her name was Lyra Hale. Students watched from the main hall balcony. Some scanned her with wrist devices. Others simply stared. Deathworld species, one of them muttered. High-gravity planet. Extreme weather. Endless wars. Earth had a reputation across the galaxy. It was listed in Academy records as a Level 9 death world. Only the most violent planets earned that number. The files showed images of hurricanes larger than cities, oceans that could swallow fleets, creatures with teeth like blades, and humans still surviving in the middle of it all. But Lyra did not look violent. She walked forward without hurry. Her steps were steady. Inside the hall, conversation stopped as she passed. Some students moved away from her path. Others leaned closer, curious. At the far end of the hall stood Varkle. He was the strongest cadet in the academy. His species came from a war planet with crushing gravity. His muscles were thick. His armor plates were natural. Scars covered his arms. He enjoyed being feared. And right now, he was smiling. "So this is the famous human," he said loudly, making sure everyone could hear. Lyra stopped walking. She looked up at him. He was almost a full head taller. "You are blocking the path," she said calmly. A few students gasped. No one spoke to Varkle like that. He stepped closer, his heavy boots hitting the metal floor with force. "They say humans are dangerous," he said. "But you look fragile." Lyra did not step back. "They say many things," she replied. Varkle circled her slowly, studying her like prey. "No visible weapons," he said. "No enhanced armor. Are you lost, Deathworld girl?" A quiet laugh spread through the crowd. Lyra's eyes remained steady. "You should move," she said. The laughter stopped. Varkle leaned down until his face was inches from hers. "Or what?" he asked. Her voice did not rise. It did not shake. "You don't want to find out." Silence filled the hall. The air felt heavy. Some students activated recording devices. Others contacted friends to come watch. Conflict between species was rare inside the academy. Rules were strict. Varkle smiled wider. "Is that a threat?" "It is a warning," Lyra said. For a second, something changed in his expression. Just for a second. He felt it. The control in her voice. The lack of fear. But pride was louder than instinct. He laughed. A deep, loud laugh that echoed across the hall. "You think you scare me?" he shouted. Lyra gave one final sentence. "This is your only warning." The words were simple, but they carried weight. Varkle straightened up and raised his arms. "Hear this. The human thinks she can threaten me." More laughter followed. Lyra bent slightly, picked up the small bag she had placed on the floor, and walked around him without touching him. He allowed it. But as she passed, she whispered just loud enough for him to hear. "You chose this." Varkle felt a strange chill move down his spine. He did not understand why. Humans were new to the galaxy. Small population. Limited territory. No ancient empire. What could she possibly do? Still, he turned to watch her walk away. Her back was relaxed. Her breathing slow. Not the posture of someone who had just survived humiliation. The posture of someone who was certain. High above them, hidden security drones recorded everything. In a private observation room, one senior instructor watched the scene again. He zoomed in on Lyra's face. No anger. No fear. Only control. The instructor sighed softly. "Someone should tell that boy," he said quietly. "Deathworlders do not give warnings twice." And across the academy, without anyone noticing, tension began to grow. Something had just started, and it would not end quietly. The next morning, the academy felt different. Whispers moved through the halls faster than light signals. Every student had seen the recording from yesterday. The moment when the human girl warned Varkle. The moment when he laughed. Most believed the story would end there. They were wrong. Varkle did not forget. In the central training chamber, students gathered for combat drills. The room was wide, with gravity controls and adaptive floors. It could change pressure, temperature, and terrain in seconds. Lyra entered quietly and took her position. Varkle was already there. He had been waiting. "Well," he said loudly, stretching his arms. The Deathworld girl came back. A few students laughed nervously. Others stayed silent. Lyra stood still. The instructor, Commander Threx, watched carefully from above. He knew tension when he saw it. He had fought in 3 interstellar wars. And right now, something about the air felt sharp. Training began. Pairs formed. Varkle walked directly toward Lyra. "Partner with me," he said. It was not a request. The instructor hesitated. Then he allowed it. Rules did not forbid mixed-species sparring. The gravity in the chamber increased slightly. For most species, it was uncomfortable. For Lyra, it felt normal. Varkle attacked first. Not full power. Just enough to push her back and embarrass her. His fist moved fast. Lyra stepped aside. Simple. Controlled. He tried again. Faster. She shifted her weight and avoided it with small movement. Students started whispering. She was not struggling. She was not panicking. She was reading him. Varkle's pride began to burn. He increased speed. His strikes became harder. The floor cracked under his weight. Lyra still did not attack. "You're afraid," he shouted. "No," she replied calmly. "I am patient." The words made him angrier. He lunged forward with full force. Lyra moved in close instead of away. One hand pressed against a nerve point near his shoulder. Just a touch. Varkle froze for half a second. His arm went numb. He stepped back, confused. The students gasped. Commander Threx narrowed his eyes. That was not luck. That was training. Varkle shook his arm and growled. "Tricks." Lyra lowered her hand. "I told you." His voice became louder. "Then stop hiding and fight me." The room fell silent again. This was no longer a simple spar. This was pride. This was dominance. Lyra looked around at the watching students. Different species. Different fears. Many still believed humans were unstable. She understood something Varkle did not. This moment was bigger than him. "If you want a real fight," Varkle shouted, "then face me in the main arena." A murmur spread across the chamber. The main arena was not for practice. It was for official duels. Recorded. Observed by Academy leaders, and sometimes even the Galactic Council. Commander Threx stepped forward. "Cadet Varkle," he said sharply, "control yourself." But Varkle continued. 3 days from now," he declared. "Public duel. I will show everyone what humans truly are." All eyes turned to Lyra. She could refuse. She could walk away. But if she did, the rumors would grow stronger. Deathworld humans would be seen as loud but weak. Lyra met Varkle's stare. "You are certain?" she asked. "Yes," he growled. She gave a small nod. "Then I accept." The chamber exploded with noise. Some students were excited. Others were worried. Commander Threx felt a quiet weight settle in his chest. He knew something Varkle did not. Humans rarely acted without purpose. Lyra turned and walked toward the exit. No smile. No anger. Just quiet certainty. Behind her, Varkle raised his fists to the air like he had already won. But above them, in a private observation room, the senior instructor replayed the nerve strike in slow motion. Precise. Measured. Efficient. He sent a silent message to the Academy Council. "Prepare medical teams," he wrote. Not for the human. Across the Academy, screens began displaying the announcement. Public duel, 3 days. Alien champion versus human Deathworlder. The galaxy loved spectacle. But what they were about to witness was not entertainment. It was a lesson, and Varkle still believed he was the teacher. He did not realize he had just stepped into something far beyond strength. He had challenged patience. And patience, on a death world, was how apex predators survived. The day of the duel arrived faster than anyone expected. The main arena of the Galactic Academy had never been this full. Students filled every seat. Instructors stood along the walls. Drones hovered in the air, recording from every angle. Even representatives from nearby systems watched through live transmissions. This was not just a school fight anymore. It had become a statement. At the center of the arena, the floor adjusted to neutral gravity. The air was balanced for all species. No one would have an unfair advantage. Varkle entered first. The heavy doors opened with a loud sound. He walked in slowly, armor plates shining under the bright lights. He raised his arms as cheers erupted from parts of the crowd. His confidence was clear. His steps were loud and strong. He believed this would be easy. Moments later, the other door opened. Lyra stepped inside. No dramatic entrance. No raised fists. No expression of anger. She walked calmly to the center and stopped a few meters away from Varkle. The cheering slowly faded. The silence that followed felt heavier than noise. Commander Threx stood above them. This duel follows Academy law. No lethal strikes. No external weapons. Victory by submission, unconsciousness, or clear disablement. Both nodded. Varkle leaned forward slightly. You still have time to withdraw, he said quietly, but his voice carried. Lyra looked at him with steady eyes. You still have time to think, she replied. The signal light turned blue. The duel began. Varkle attacked instantly. He moved faster than during training. His muscles tightened as he launched forward with a powerful strike aimed at her upper body. The crowd held its breath. Lyra stepped to the side. Not far. Not dramatic. Just enough. His fist hit empty air. He turned quickly, following with a spinning kick. She lowered her body and avoided it by inches. The movements were small, efficient, controlled. No wasted energy. Varkle attacked again and again. Each strike strong enough to break bone. Each movement fueled by pride and anger. Lyra kept moving, watching, measuring distance, reading rhythm. After several failed strikes, frustration showed on Varkle's face. Fight back, he shouted. I am, she answered calmly. He roared and charged directly at her, aiming to overpower her with weight and force. This time she did not step away. She stepped in. The crowd gasped. At the last second, Lyra shifted her body sideways. One hand guided his momentum past her. Her other hand struck precisely below his chest plate. A sharp sound echoed. Varkle froze mid-step. His breath caught. His body locked. Lyra moved again, placing 2 fingers against a pressure point near his neck. Another precise motion. Varkle's legs gave out. He collapsed to one knee. The arena fell completely silent. No explosion. No dramatic energy blast. Just controlled technique. Varkle tried to stand. His muscles did not respond properly. His nervous system was overloaded. His breathing uneven. Lyra stepped back, giving him space. This ends now, she said quietly. But pride pushed him one last time. With a loud shout, he forced himself upward and swung wildly. Lyra avoided the strike with a small turn and delivered one final controlled hit to the center of his torso. A pulse of force spread through his armor. Smoke rose lightly from damaged systems. Varkle's eyes widened in shock. Then he fell forward. Unconscious. The sound of his body hitting the floor echoed across the massive arena. No one moved. No one spoke. The strongest cadet in the academy had been defeated in less than 2 minutes. And the human girl had barely raised her voice. Medical teams rushed in. Scanners confirmed what many already realized. No permanent damage. Just precise shutdown of muscle control and armor systems. Lyra stood quietly as they carried him away. There was no celebration in her face. No pride. Only calm breathing. Commander Threx looked down at her from above, his expression serious. Victory confirmed, he announced. But his voice carried something else. Respect. Around the arena, students slowly began to understand what they had witnessed. This was not raw strength. This was discipline. This was adaptation. This was control built in a world that tried to kill its people every day. Lyra turned and walked toward the exit. Behind her, whispers began spreading again. But they were no longer filled with mockery. They were filled with something new. Caution. Across distant systems watching the broadcast, leaders leaned forward in silence. The galaxy had just learned an important lesson. Deathworld humans did not win with noise. They won with precision. And the most dangerous opponent was not the loudest one. It was the calm one who warned you first. The arena did not return to normal after the duel. Even hours later, groups of students stood in quiet circles, replaying the fight on their devices. They slowed the footage frame by frame. They zoomed in on every movement Lyra made. Each time, the result was the same. No wasted motion. No anger. No panic. Only control. In the medical wing, Varkle lay on a recovery platform. His body was healing fast. His species was built for battle. But his mind was restless. He stared at the ceiling. He remembered the moment she stepped forward instead of back. He remembered the exact second when his arm stopped responding. It had not felt like overwhelming force. It had felt like perfect timing. In a private council chamber above the academy, senior officials gathered around a large holographic display. The duel replayed in silence. One council member spoke first. Humans were classified as emotionally unstable. Another shook their head. That evaluation may be outdated. The image froze on Lyra's final strike. She had complete restraint, an instructor added. She could have caused serious damage. She chose not to. That detail mattered. Across the galaxy, history showed a pattern. Strong species often relied on domination. When challenged, they crushed opposition to prove superiority. But the human girl had not crushed Varkle. She had ended the fight with the smallest force required. That kind of power was harder to measure. Back in the academy courtyard, Lyra sat alone on a bench under a transparent dome that showed distant stars. She was not celebrating. She was reading a digital file from her wrist pad. Footsteps approached slowly. It was Commander Threx. He stopped a few steps away. "You controlled yourself well," he said. Lyra closed her file. "That was the objective. Many would have taken the chance to prove dominance," he continued. She looked up at the stars. "On my world, wasting energy can mean death." He studied her face carefully. There was no arrogance there. Only simple truth. "Why give him a warning?" Threx asked. Lyra answered without delay. "Because conflict is expensive." The commander folded his arms. "And if he challenges you again?" Her eyes returned to him. "He won't." There was no threat in her voice. Only certainty. Later that day, the Academy released an official statement. The duel had followed all rules. Varkle would recover fully. No punishment would be given to either cadet. But something else changed quietly. The human species file was updated. New notes were added. High pain tolerance. Advanced adaptive combat training. Strong emotional control under pressure. Strategic restraint. Those last two words stayed highlighted on the screen longer than the rest. In the dormitory wing, students from different species discussed what they had seen. "I thought humans were reckless," one said. "They are," another replied softly. "But only when they must be." For the first time, the whispers carried respect instead of fear. The next morning, Lyra walked through the same hallway where Varkle had blocked her path days earlier. Students stepped aside before she reached them. Not out of fear, out of awareness. Halfway down the corridor, Varkle appeared from the opposite side. He had recovered enough to walk without assistance. The hall grew quiet again. They stopped a few steps from each other. This time, he did not stand in her way. For several seconds, neither spoke. Then Varkle gave a small nod. It was not dramatic. It was not public. But it was real. Lyra returned the nod and continued walking. The tension that had filled the academy days before was gone. In its place was something more stable. Understanding. High above the planetless station, news of the duel continued spreading across systems. Analysts debated human combat styles. Military leaders requested new reports. Some species felt uneasy. Others felt curious. Because the most surprising truth was not that a Deathworld human had won. It was how she had won. Not with rage. Not with destruction. But with control so precise it looked effortless. And that realization unsettled the galaxy far more than raw strength ever could. The lesson was simple. Humans did not need to prove they were dangerous. They simply needed to show it once. And now they had. The academy returned to routine, but something invisible had changed. Training sessions continued. Lessons resumed. Students laughed again in the halls. But the sound was different now. Softer. More careful. No one spoke about humans as if they were fragile anymore. Across the galaxy, clips of the duel spread through military networks and research stations. Analysts slowed down Lyra's movements again and again. Her technique became a subject of study. Not because it was flashy, because it was efficient. On Earth, storms shaped mountains. Oceans carved stone. Survival was not about anger. It was about patience. Humans had learned to endure pressure long before they reached the stars. The galaxy was only beginning to understand that. At the academy, Lyra entered combat theory class as usual. Some students watched her with open curiosity. A few even greeted her politely. She returned the greetings with a small nod. She had not fought to gain status. She had fought to end a problem. Later that afternoon, Commander Threx addressed the full student body in the central hall. "Strength," he began, his voice steady, "is not measured by noise." The room grew quiet. "We witnessed something important 3 days ago. Not the defeat of a cadet, but the demonstration of discipline." He paused, letting the words settle. Power without control destroys itself. Control without fear creates stability. His eyes briefly moved toward Lyra, who stood among the others. "The galaxy is changing. New species rise. Old assumptions fall. Learn from this. The speech ended without applause. It did not need any. After dismissal, a smaller cadet from a winged species approached Lyra near the exit. Why didn't you humiliate him? The cadet asked softly. You could have. Lyra adjusted the strap on her bag. Humiliation creates enemies, she replied. And you don't want enemies? She gave a slight smile. On my world, we already have enough. That answer traveled through the academy faster than the duel itself. In the medical wing, Varkle completed his final scan. His body had fully recovered. His pride was still healing. He walked alone toward the training chamber. When he entered, he found Lyra there, practicing slow, controlled movements under increased gravity. She noticed him, but did not stop. For a moment, he simply watched. Her balance never broke. Her breathing remained steady. I misjudged you, he said finally. She finished her movement before responding. Yes, she said calmly. He expected anger, mockery, something sharp, but there was none. You could have ended my career, he continued. I ended the fight, she corrected. That was enough. The words carried no superiority, only fact. Varkle lowered his head slightly. I will not challenge you again. That would be wise, she replied. There was no threat in it, only truth. For the first time, Varkle understood something important. The human girl had never tried to dominate him. She had tried to prevent the fight entirely. And when forced, she had finished it without cruelty. That realization stayed with him. Weeks later, the Galactic Council released an updated species assessment regarding humans. The new classification read, Adaptive Apex Civilization. The change caused debate across star systems. Some leaders felt uneasy. Others felt relieved. Because an apex predator that warns before striking is far safer than one that does not. Back at the academy, life moved forward. But one thing never returned. The laughter. No one laughed at the word Deathworld anymore. It was spoken with quiet understanding. Lyra continued her studies without seeking attention. She trained harder than before. She improved quietly. Because for humans, proving strength once was never the goal. Surviving tomorrow was. High above the academy, stars burned in silent patterns. The galaxy had learned a lesson it would not forget. When a Deathworld human gives you a warning, it is not a threat. It is mercy. And mercy, once ignored, does not come twice.